We're back with more subclasses. We're going to walk down the rogue's memory lane. Welcome to the attic dungeon. My name is Sam, and whether you have the sharpest mind or the sharpest dagger, I'm here to help you with everything. So yes, welcome back to another episode of the attic dungeon. This is the obligatory promotional part, so if you are very interested in watching a guy in his mid-30s shout at the most colorful wall ever seen on an attic, don't hesitate to like, subscribe, leave a comment, you know the drill. If you're interested in actual Dungeons & Dragons content, do the same thing. Yes, I'm covering 2 niches today, huzzah! Now let's get on with what I'm actually planning to do today. The Rogue, everybody's favorite stabby steely class. I want to do a martial class because the cleric left me with traumas related to how many subclasses they had. The Rogue is a bit more compact, and I convinced myself that since they're not a spellcasting class with 3 spells at every subclass, this should be simpler. And then obviously one of the first classes we'll encounter is the Arcane Trickster. So there went that plan straight out the window. But anyway, I am doing the Rogue. They gain quite a few subclass feature. That makes sense because they are a martial class. And martial classes tend to get a bit more features because they don't have spells, obviously. For rogues, it's called the Roguish archetype. You'll get stuff at level 3. And if I'm not mistaken, then we jump straight on to level 9 though for them. And then there's something left at 13, 17, and that's it. So the Rogue, usually your Rogue subclasses will be quite front-loaded. You'll get multiple things at level 3, which is great because we like that when we multi-class into something up to level 3 to gain subclass features. It's always fun when the class is a bit front-loaded. But then it's a bit sad that you have to wait all the way up to level 9 before you get your second feature. Nonetheless, it can be quite worth waiting for some of those level 9 features that are quite nice. So, we're starting, as I said, with the spellcaster of the bunch, the Arcane Trickster. The fantasy is very simple. You're a rogue who has mastered some magic. There we are. If I'm not mistaken, it's mainly illusion and enchantment magic that you get to pick. And the same idea applies here, first and foremost. The same idea applies here as with the Arcane Trickster. No, with the, what's it called? Come on, the fighter one. Eldritch Knight, when I'll talk about it. All these, like, third caster classes, that's what they call these. So you have, like, full casters, cleric, wizard, half casters, paladin, artificer, and third caster classes. The subclass casters, basically. So the Eldritch Knight and the Arcane Trickster. Your casting ability score will probably never reach the highest point. So you have to be careful in picking spells that rely too heavily on the difficulty class of the spell. Because obviously it's going to be very easy as a rogue to get your intelligence at 16. You can start out with like 16 dex, 14 con, 16 intelligence if you want, even 16, 16, 16 if you throw away all the other ability scores. So it's not that hard, but you are going to still want to improve dexterity first probably. So it will take a while before you, if you're planning on doing so, if you're not taking any feats, before you get to bump up your intelligence to a higher level. Keep that in mind because your spells will never be as efficient as a full caster. Or even a half caster, and you're gaining spell levels at an incredibly slow rate. Now this all sounds very negative, but what the Arcane Trickster does is provide an incredible amount of flexibility to the rogue. It's a toolkit. It's a Swiss Army knife of low-level spells that you can put to good use. I'm going to go through a few simple restrictions first and explain you how the class works. And then we'll get to some of the spells. So, obviously, I already mentioned it's an intelligence subclass. So, rogues only need dexterity to function. That's good. Constitution is nice, but this one is going to need intelligence. You get to pick spells, as I said, enchantment and illusion spells, and they have to come from the wizard list. And once every so often, you get to pick a spell that can be from any school, which is fun. But again, when you finally get to level 3 spells, it's really not worth picking up Fireball anymore, because all the other damage that even you can do with your blades or the other casters can do with their spells, it will outscale a basic ass Fireball by far. But there's quite some good stuff to pick up. You learn spells every so often. I think every 2 levels you pick up a spell. So on top of the subclass features at 3, 9 and the other numbers that I mentioned, you actually pick up subclass features every 2 levels under the shape of new spells. Everything is determined by intelligence, already said that. You only learn up to 4th level spells, so that's why I talked about good utility, low level spells. I'll bite the bullet and do the spell list first. So there's a few things that are really good. You get to pick 3 cantrips. At least one of those should be Booming Blade and or Green Flame Blade. Why? Those are cantrips that rely on your dexterity, because they rely on a melee weapon attack. That's good stuff, because your dexterity is going to be your highest thing. And they add a secondary effect to your attacks. Green Flame Blade especially covers something that rogues are terrible at, namely harming multiple opponents in a single turn. That's not their gig. Green Flame Blade allows you to do so, and they can trigger sneak attack. Since they're melee attacks, there is no reason when your sneak attack conditions have been fulfilled that they cannot trigger sneak attack. So they are quite certainly better than just attacking, especially if you're not a dual wielding rogue. If you're like a rapier rogue or whatever, this is always going to be better. So that's good stuff for your cantrips. And if we're looking at spells, as I already said, we're looking at utility spells. Now I forgot the name. Oh, Silvery Barbs. There we are. I almost forgot the name of my favorite level 1 spell since Strixhaven came out. But Silvery Barbs is an excellent spell for rogues. Obviously, you have a use for your reaction, since you can sneak attack on reaction. That's really strong. But Silvery Barbs is so good, in my opinion, that there is nothing wrong with picking it up. You can give someone else advantage. I forgot to check if you can give yourself advantage with Silvery Barbs. Basically, you give somebody else a reroll, an enemy a reroll, in the hopes that, and they have to use the lower result, I think. And you give somebody else advantage. So you fiddle with dice, which is amazing to do. It's a spell that does not rely on any form of difficulty class, so even a 10 intelligence rogue would be using Silvery Barbs at great efficiency. If we go up a level, there is stuff like invisibility, which also always works, of course, for a rogue. Oh, if you really want at level 1, Find Familiar has use as well. You're already a great explorer. Combined with a familiar, you're a magnificent explorer. Level 2 spells, invisibility I think is the most important thing here. Stealth goes even better when nothing can see you. There's a few like defensive spells, blur and mirror image. At this point, you're still kind of squishy, so those spells can certainly help to keep you going. Level 3 spells, I think the most important one here is Shadowblade. It basically provides you with a magical weapon that hits even harder in darkness. There is no reason as an Arcane Trickster rogue to not pick up Shadowblade. I think it's really good for them. Misty Step is obviously it's one of the spells you have to pick up when you can pick any school, but it adds some wonderful teleportation options to your rogue, so that works as well. Same kind of goes for Vortex Warp, but it's for teleporting other people and not you, if I'm not mistaken. The 3rd level spells, Fly, of course. Haste is less of a thing for a rogue because your power doesn't come from attacking many times. The increased speed, armor class, the extra attack will do something, obviously, but since you lean into hitting heavily once over hitting 25 times like the fighter, haste is less important to you, and you're not the best concentration keeper either, so meh. Major Image, really good. You are an illusion based caster class, so Major Image really works. Also because it doesn't automatically check for intelligence to see if it's an illusion. People have to like spend an action and do stuff, so it will keep someone busy, of course. And then at the 4th level spells, stuff like greater invisibility, obviously. This just turns you into an invisible ninja, but at that point you're level 17 or 19, so I mean it's not that amazing for everybody else, but you being able to cast greater invisibility on yourself, oh dear god, that is a lot of fun. So we're aiming at utility spells that help you do what you do best. It's a toolkit. It is a Swiss Army knife, but in general it's a Swiss Army knife that I tend to let lean into what the rogue already does. I don't try to make the rogue into a bard that can do anything, because yes, you're picking from the wizard list, you're limited to enchantment and illusion spells. So yeah, there is that. Still though, it's a really good spell list to pick from to make your rogue even better, and a touch of magic here and there never hurt anyone. But that's just the spells. Obviously you get other stuff as well. At level 3, yeah, I mean, things going on for almost 10 minutes and I have only touched the spell list of the first subclass. Martial classes are easier. Oh, stupid me. So Mage Hand also gets added to your spell list for an Arcane Trickster, and it gets an upgrade. It's invisible, you can control it during with your cunning action, you can stow and retrieve items from containers worn or carried by another creature, so you can kind of pickpocket a little bit with it. You can use it to manipulate thief tools and traps, so that's fun as well. You can try to disarm a trap without it blowing up in your face. This is really valuable, by the way. I'm in a campaign with an Arcane Trickster rogue, and this feature is used like all the time. Oh, there's a lock and we have to open it. It's either my artificer with the double expertise on thief tools, or the Mage Hand, which won't get blown up in any significant way if the door or the trap happens to blow up, so that's really good. Also, you can stealth your hand if you perform a sleight of hand as opposed to a perception check. You can do the 3 things that I just said, or the 2 things that I just said, unseen or unhurt with your hand, because it's invisible, which is fun. At level 9, there is Magical Ambush coming your way. This basically means that if you are hidden and you're targeting someone with a spell that they need to save against, they get disadvantage against the saving throw. This is actually quite good and might encourage you to pick up an enchantment spell that freezes an opponent for a while. You know, there's plenty of spells like that. Hold monster, hold person. Well, you wouldn't get hold monster, but hold person, for example. If they have disadvantage, generally that's seen as being equal to a -5 for disadvantage. So, I mean, I could see that work. Hide yourself and blast someone with a strong enchantment to keep him in place is not a bad way to open combat, because then they're frozen and you can just shank them 5 ways till Sunday. Versatile Trickster at 13 allows you to distract people with your Mage Hand. You spend a bonus action to let the Mage Hand annoy someone, and you get advantage against them, which is nice because advantage obviously means higher chance to hit. And sneak attack, yay, sneak attack, and higher chance to crit, and the rogues love crit. And at level 17 you get Spell Thief. Here it becomes a bit more complicated, of course. Here, when you get hit by a spell, even if it's an area of effect spell, you can force the opponent to roll as a reaction, against your spell DC with their spell casting ability modifier. If they fail, you steal the spell for 8 hours. It has to be at least a level 1 spell and not higher than whatever you can cast. So level 1 to 4 spell, you can cast it using your own spell slots for the next 8 hours, and whomever casts the spell cannot cast a spell for 8 hours. This is really flavorful. And I can only hope that at this level, level 17, your Dungeon Master is willingly slinging level 1 to 4 spells at you to use this feature. It's a bit dodgy, obviously, but it's fun. Can only use it once per long rest, though. And that is the Arcane Trickster. A very good rogue subclass, because flexibility matters. Spellcasting gives you options. Even if you have limited spell slots, you can pick up a few options in spells that allow you to be a better rogue, and then kind of diversify here and there and pick up something cool just because you have spells. Now let's slide on to the non-spellcast stabby guy that starts with an A, the Assassin. The Assassin is infamous for one thing: assassinating people. They have the most insane opening shank potential of the entire game, I think. Obviously, the flavor here is very simple. You are an assassin. You are specialized in ambushing people and making sure they don't see the light of the next day, which should be fun. Now, what do they get? At level 3, first thing, basic stuff, proficiency with Disguise Kit and Poisoner's Kit. You're going to notice that a lot of the stuff that the assassin gets are really good if you're playing a campaign that allows for a lot of social intrigue or espionage, which makes sense for an assassin subclass, obviously. If it's only combat, some of the stuff is going to go to waste. But we're not here for the bonus proficiencies, we're here for assassinate. When you get the drop on the enemies, they're dead. If you attack an enemy that has not yet acted in combat, you will attack with advantage, and any hit will be a critical hit. Now, that's going to sting in the morning because critical sneak attacks are an absolute to get hit by. This is quite capable of eliminating an enemy in round 1. I'm not saying eliminating the boss, though. It will... I mean, as a dungeon master, if you have an assassin rogue in the party, you have to take into account that on occasion something is going to die before it has had a decent turn. For the assassins themselves, notify your party, because if the fighter is charging in every combat and you don't get the chance to hide an ambush, that's a waste of the best ability that you have. There you are. So communicate with the party. Even if they want to charge in, tell them that you'll hide beforehand so you can at least do your thing. Also works with a bow, obviously. So even if they charge, you can just snipe them from a distance and assassinate them on a ranged basis. Their level 9 infiltration expertise is a bit weird. You can create false identities that are super convincing. For 25G, you basically create a second life, and nobody will doubt your persona, your new character, if they don't have reason to. And even when they investigate and you have to roll deception, I think you have advantage or something like that. It's really again, in a social intrigue campaign, this is a lot of fun. You cannot impersonate an existing person, so you can't become the local prince, but you could forge the right documents and stuff and titles to be a nobleman from a distant country. That is very much possible. Level 13 ability leans a bit more into this, where you, with imposter, it's called, you learn to copy somebody's speech, mannerisms and way of writing, but you first have to spend 3 hours observing these before you can copy them. It explicitly says you have to observe all of them, but as a dungeon master, I'd say yes, you've seen him speak, you've seen him walk for 3 hours, you can copy that. But if somebody asks you to sign with his signature, you're humped because you've never learned that. Oh no, this is the one where you get advantage on your deception checks. If you're impersonating the people and you're acting like them, you have advantage on the deception check if somebody's trying to discover that you're lying, you sleazy git. So we have bonus proficiencies, stab someone to death, really cool spy stuff that will only pop up in the right campaign, and 17 is more stabbiness. If you ever have a level 17 assassination rogue, stuff is going to die even harder. When you attack, when you do the thing with the stabbing, your target has to roll a constitution save based against your dexterity modifier, which should be 20 at this point for every right reason. And if they fail the save, the attack damage gets doubled. So we're talking about an automatic sneak attack crit that is getting doubled here. So that's basically 4 times the damage, which is going to be hilarious and which is going to shank a lot of things for a lot of damage. This is all the assassin does. Infiltrate and stab. There you are. It's not a Swiss Army knife. It infiltrates and it stabs, but it's really, really, really good at both of those. Because of Assassinate being at level 3, this also is quite popular as a multi-class subclass dip, really. Because there's nothing bad for any class about being able to crit on the first attack with a bit of sneak attack. Other classes can, like, if somehow you mix this with a paladin, you can smite on top of the sneak attack, which also crits, and then you start. I mean, there's fun stuff to do with the assassination rogues. And our last person for today, our last rogue, is the Inquisitive. This is basically the detective. This is a detective. This is fun. Again, also a bit nichey in the roles that you fulfill. There has to be some social stuff going on and clues to discover. If it's just Armageddon hitting and wave after wave of bad guys heading your way, it's going to be less interesting. We've already had a rogue based on intelligence. This one is a rogue based on wisdom. It's actually quite remarkable, but the rogue has quite a few subclasses that lean into a new ability score. It's because you have the flexibility to pick up another ability score. You get a bunch of stuff that allows you to be a better detective. You get Ear for Deceit, which allows you to fix any insight roll to discern lies when somebody's talking to you and you're rolling for insight. Anything lower than a 7 or lower is treated as an 8. So you can never roll below 8 on your insight checks, which is quite cool. You also get eye for detail, so your perception and investigation checks are a bonus action in combat. This is not bad, but there's a lot of stuff that I kind of allow as a free action in combat because I like my players using their skills, and I find it very restrictive that it costs an action. So at my table, this might not be the best feature, though perception to spot a hidden creature, as it's worded here, or intelligence to decipher clues during combat, a bit weird. The perception to spot hidden creatures would surely still be an action, so it's still valuable. And then here you have insightful. Is it insightful fight? Yeah, insightful fighting. That's their combat trick, so to speak. As a bonus action, you make insight versus creature's deception. If they fail, you can sneak attack even if you don't have advantage. So you can use your bonus action to lure out a free sneak attack, which isn't horrible. It's a cool combat trick to have. Tasha's also gave the rogue like a thing, if you don't move you can gain advantage on attacking, so this is kind of, it overlaps a bit with this, but here obviously you can still move, but it requires you to make a check. Obviously it's an insight check, so you want high wisdom to make this work most of the time. Steady eye, more detective stuff at level 9. If you have moved less than half your speed during your turn, your perception and investigation checks get advantage. That's cool. That's really good against illusions in combat, to be honest. And this also means that out of combat, you basically always have advantage on those checks. Permanent advantage on investigation and perception really is not bad. You will be the lighthouse of the party. You will be spotting stuff left and right. Level 13 is a bit dodgy, as in you gain an ability that you can activate a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier that allows you to spot illusions and other fakeries, which is cool, but you don't know like the type of illusion or the exact, you know that something is deceiving you, but you don't know what it is or where it is, and that's a bit lackluster for a level 13 ability. This is like Detect Traps, the second level spell that tells you there's a trap but doesn't tell you where or what type of trap it is. That's kind of the same thing here. It's nice to know that there's illusions. It can be really strong knowing that there's illusions, but I would have expected something more from level 13 feature. And the level 17 feature adds some damage to your detective. If you've managed to fiddle around an opponent with the level 3 feature, I forgot the name, damn it, Insightful Fighting. If that thing has worked, if you have gained your sneak attack because of Insightful Fighting, so the check that you, what's it, Insight, it's a wisdom check, I forgot it again, yeah, Insight versus Deception check, and they fail, you get 3d6 added to the sneak attack, which is nice. More sneak attack is cool. It leans into that action that you're probably going to be using a lot in now you want to use it even in situations where you already had sneak attack, just to lure out. Now it has become bonus action, do more sneak attack damage. This is not bad. This is a really mid rogue class because it very much needs a specific environment to be amazing in. The assassin will always be amazing in combat. This one is okay in combat and really good at being a detective, so you need to be in a detective story for him to really do their thing. But that is all I'm going to talk about for today when it comes to rogues. So I've started a new series. This is obviously the new series. We'll be working our way through all of the rogue classes. I can always use tips when it comes to rogues, so don't hesitate to leave a comment down below. Give me some advice on stuff I should really cover when talking about rogue subclasses. And then if all goes well, my dear people, I'll see you again in 2 weeks in the Attic Dungeon.